Welcome to the channel. This week on the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener, we prune the roses out the back and we explore the problem of killer compost. Come potter with me in the garden. My name is Dawn and I am the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener. Good morning. So today I'd like to do a little chat about something that has affected me in the past and that I know is a real problem for gardeners all over New Zealand and around the world as well, but it is becoming a more and more prominent problem here in New Zealand. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about something called killer compost, and no, it's not something that's going to come out and hit you in the head from the garden. Killer compost is either compost mixes, manure, in green waste mixtures that are being sold as compost, anything like that that has been contaminated with herbicide. So I'm going to use a few notes to help me, and sorry if I mispronounce any of the words because they are chemical names and some of them are a bit hard to get my tongue around. So killer compost is manure, compost or anything of that sort that has had a, now let me try and get my tongue around this, aminopyralid type herbicide. Right, I got it. So this chemical is found in a lot of common weed killers that are used both domestically and out on the farm. So the most common ones, as I said, are aminopyralid, cleopyralid, picalurum, as I said, dreadful pronouncing, and one that's less common but can still be relevant is aminocyclophyllite. Yeah. Okay, but they can be found in products, and these I can pronounce. So like Tordon, Grazon, Versatil, Triumph, Picalurum 75, T-Max, Grazon Extra, and I think there's another one over on the other page. No, that's it. Okay, so they are the brand names of where those chemicals can be found. So how does it get into the compost? Well, there's a couple of different ways. So for things like manure and what have you, what happens is that they're sprayed on pasture to reduce the broadleaf because the farmer just wants grass, which is, you know, fair enough, I suppose. They want a high yielding pasture. Then what happens is that the animal comes along and eats it. So that's horse, cows, that sort of thing. That's fine. It doesn't hurt the animal. But what happens is that the chemical goes through the digestive system and out in the poop. And it's the poop that we collect to add to our garden as animal manure. Now it survives, the chemicals survive in the digestive system, they're not altered. So they go right through. They also survive composting, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute when I look at the other reason, other area that they can come from. Okay, they can sit there for months and months and months and not break down. It can be well over 2 years before the chemical will break down, and that manure is safe potentially. So we've got the manures as one form of contamination that can get into your garden. The other form of contamination that can get into your garden is through composting, and often green waste composting. As long as you're not using these chemicals on your lawn and composting them, they shouldn't be an issue for home compost. But for green waste or commercial composting, it depends on where they're sourcing their stuff from. Now, most places will say to whoever's supplying their green waste that they're not to provide green waste with the stuff on it. However, we all know that people don't stick to the rules. I mean, just look at people speeding on the road. So yeah, that the green waste is provided to these companies who are making the compost, and that includes the councils, and they do it in good faith. It's nothing to do with them doing it out of bad faith. They are taking the stuff that has been given to them in good faith and composting it. Now, commercial composting is done as hot composting. It's not very often that home composts are done as hot composts because you need a big volume to do it in. But with commercial composting, it is done as hot composting. So hot composting is somewhere around 50 to 75 degrees, medium is sort of 60, 65 degrees Celsius. And that will kill seeds and other things like that. Unfortunately, it does not destroy these chemicals. They are still 100% in the green waste despite the hot composting. The hot composting process takes roughly 30 days to 60 days depending on who's doing it, how they're doing it, etc, etc. So even with that length of time at those temperatures, it still doesn't break the chemicals down. So how is it getting into the green waste composting? Well, it comes from a few areas. I'll just read them off because I can't remember. Lawn clippings, hedge trimmings, garden waste, which is, you know, if someone had sprayed their garden and then popped it in the green bin, roadside vegetation that's been sprayed, big parks that have been sprayed so that the grass is there, as well as big commercial places that spray their grass for, you know, like golf courses. Okay, I have to think for a minute. So, you know, those are how it's getting there. And it's not every contractor that's doing this. It takes only a small amount to make a big difference in these composts, and a little bit gets spread a long way because it all gets mixed up. It only takes actually about 1 part per billion to actually for you to see the effect in your garden. So what do you see in your garden if you have got killer compost and you're using it? Well, the plants that you'll often see it most vividly in are things like peas, beans, tomatoes, capsicums, chili peppers, those sorts of things. Oh, potatoes as well. They are really quite dramatic. And what happens is that the plant, so if you're growing it from seed and it comes up, will be all twisted and distorted and look really funky, sort of like this. Sorry. So yeah, it looks like that, and the plant itself probably won't put out fruit or anything like that. If you're planting seedlings into it, they will become like that and all munched up and crunched up. They'll become affected and you will have stunted growth, as said, no fruit off it or anything like that. It also doesn't just affect those ones that I've listed off, but it will affect things like flowers too. So dahlias, sunflowers, other ornamentals. I know for me, my lobelia and my petunia were affected. Other plants that can be affected, but probably to a lesser degree, are things like lettuce, spinach, and your brassicas. So what can you do if you are hit by this? I mean, you won't know by the look of your actual compost. It's only when your plants either germinate or you've popped them in and they start growing and they're affected that you will know that you've got killer compost. Well, there's nothing you can actually do for the plants that are being currently affected. They're done. and it's annoying, and all you can really do is rip them out and mark that area as affected. Now it depends on where you actually have that soil and where you're growing. So if it's pots like it was for me, I ended up shoving my pots around the back alley, and I'll explain why I did that in a few minutes. But if it's in your garden bed, you're left with the option of growing stuff in that bed that is not affected by these chemicals, or digging it out and hoping that you get it all. So the chemicals will break down, but it takes quite a lot of time. It takes up to about 2 years, and what you need is sun, rain, and plants that may help break it down, like grasses, etc., which aren't affected by that chemical. So for my pots, I have popped them around the back, and I have let the rain, the sun hit them, and I've let the natural fungi and everything like that help break down those chemicals. And I'm just coming up to 2 years that those pots have been sitting there, and hopefully they'll be okay. And I'll tell you in a minute about how you test it before you use those pots. If it's in your garden, as I said, you've got the option of digging it out and or planting other plants there that aren't affected by it, and they hopefully help break it down. There has been a case recently in the last 12 months where a Christchurch person actually took the company to the small claims court and did get awarded money because of the damage it had done to her garden. But she had done a really large area, she had all the documentation, and you've actually got to have the money and etc. to take it through the small claims court to win it. For me, I had probably had the compost for some time, and it was just sitting there in a bag, and I used it and it affected, so it was more difficult for me to prove. But I did have all my documentation, because I'm one of these people who keeps a bit of paper for ages, and I had loads of photos and what have you, and I talked to the people who had sold me the compost, and they were very, very good about it and did compensate me with new compost. So that was good for me, but not everyone can actually pin exactly when, and because I get mine from a specific place, they were really good about it. I must also note that they do test normally where I go, and he was kind of surprised that it had slipped through. But big companies, because it can be in like the stuff I got, the stuff that the lady got for her landscaping, but it can also be in the commercial bags that you buy at all the big garden stores and the hardware stores, etc., and it'll be almost impossible to trace where it's come from. Now the other thing I should say is it's not harmful to you, it's not harmful to your pets or anything like that. It's a herbicide, so it won't affect you or your pets, but it's not recommended that you eat the stuff off those plants. Even if they did produce fruit, it's not recommended to eat it. So how do you avoid it? Well, the easiest way to do it, the cheapest way, is to do what they call the pea or the bean test, because peas and beans are most commonly affected, and you will really see the effects quite quickly. So it's just about taking a sample pot of your compost and popping it in a little pot with a bean or a pea and letting it grow. And after about 21 days, you should know if the bean or pea is coming up normal or it's starting to look damaged. It might take up to 28 days depending on. You can send soil samples away. There are at least one lab I know that does soil assays, but to do that, that's going to cost you money. A pea or a bean is a lot less. So with the soil that I've got down the side and the pots, that's what I'll be doing before I use it, either in the pots or out on the garden. I'll be doing a pea or a bean test to see what it's like now after 2 years. If it's still looking dodgy, I'll just leave it as is for another year or two and try again. I don't want to pop it in my green waste because all I'm doing is actually spreading it. So yeah, I don't want to be that person that will then dump more chemical laden soil onto someone else. So how do you prevent getting hit by it? Well, it's pretty hard because if you're like me and many people, you buy compost and all that sort of stuff. I do make my own compost, but I don't have enough. I'm a home gardener. But since I got hit with the killer compost effect, I have been trying to make more and more of my own compost. And I have been doing the bean test when I remember. I don't always remember. I get carried away and pop it on and then sort of think, oh, damn. But yeah, they're your options, is make your own compost or do the bean test or pea test before you use your compost. Other methods is you can do leaf mould yourself, but that actually only adds structure, not nutrients, leaf mould. But then there's things like collecting seaweed and things like that, but just remember to collect it off beaches that are allowed to be collected off. Don't go into areas where you shouldn't be going to collect seaweed. If you are making your own compost, just remember not to add grass clippings that you have sprayed or someone in your family may have sprayed. So yeah, you've got to be quite careful about what you're adding to your compost too. Now there's heaps of information on the internet about this, and I will list them in the description, different sites. There is actually a New Zealand Facebook group called Killer Compost NZ. Now you want to make sure it is a New Zealand based group, which this one is, and I'll put the link down in the description because you want local information. If you're watching this video and you're from another country, check on your own country's Facebook groups, put your Killer Compost in and then say Australia, UK, wherever you are. I do know that it's been a big issue in the UK and that a lot of allotment gardeners and gardeners in general have been hit by it, and there has been quite a strong movement over there. Right, I'll leave it there now. If you've got any further questions, you can ask me in the comments below, or you can come onto my Facebook page, which is the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener. I had to think for a second there, and ask questions there as well. Quite happy to answer anything that I may or may not have covered or that you want clarification for. Good afternoon. Well, it's a bit chilly and there's an easterly blowing, so I'm hiding around the back at the moment, trying to use the house as a bit of a shelter so I can get a few things done. As you can see, I am out by the roses, by the big picture window, and my plan is to try and get them pruned today. However, before I do that, I need to make sure that my gear is sorted. So I've got my bin and I've got my trusty snips, well, one pair of them. Pair I haven't managed to lose in the last week or two. And I've got my sharpener. Now I did wipe these down, so the blades have been wiped down with a bit of meths. I'm not going to the extreme of wiping it down between each rose because each rose is right next door to each other. But yeah, since I last used them, I've wiped them down. Now, it's good if they're sharp, and since I got this little tool a fair few weeks ago now, it's been invaluable. I've been able to keep my little snips, secateurs sharp, as well as the big loppers. I shouldn't need the big loppers here, but If I do, I'll go and get them. But yeah, at the moment I'm just using this. So yeah, if you do sharpen your own tools, this thing actually is, you know, for the price, it wasn't cheap really for what it was. It was about 30 bucks, I think. But you know, it's definitely been worth it to date. Now, how do you prune roses? Well, actually, they're a lot easier than what people seem to think that they are. They're fairly hard to kill, though I have tried to attempt it in the last wee bit with a couple of roses that have been overcrowded, but it had nothing to do with the pruning. And the thing is, if you get it wrong, which there isn't really a wrong, but if you don't get it quite right, there is always another season to fix it up, you know, next year. Or, like I do tidy my roses up midsummer and give them a quick prune, just the really weird hairy bits that are sticking out the top. So with roses, it's roughly a 45-degree cut, it's not exact, and prune to a bud that you want pointing in the right direction. So with something like this, I would probably prune all the way down there to a bud that's coming out like that. So that's probably the main thing. After pruning 45 degrees to the bud going the way that you want, so it's the top bit of the 45 degrees is next to the bud, then it's just the basic dead, dying, diseased. Remove all those out. Anything that's going the wrong direction and anything that's crossing over or crowding the plant in the middle. Certainly any big long suckers, because they are actually softwood and not real rose producing wood, so you want to get rid of any soft suckers. But I took mine out a few weeks ago because they were rubbing on the window and annoying people. In theory, you're meant to prune your rose anywhere between a third and a half down. I tend to be a lot more severe with these roses especially. I prune them quite hard back to probably about a third of their actual size now, because these things grow like weeds here, and if I don't prune them hard, then they just get out of control in the summer. Like a lot of things, you want to clear out the centre a bit because you want good air circulation to reduce diseases like black spot, rust, all that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that there can be a good circulation of air there to reduce that. I'll see if I can find any little easy diagrams to show you how to do the 45-degree cut and pop that in the description. I'll see if there's anything there that's helpful to people. Now these roses are about, I was going to say about 8 years old I think now, so they're fairly well established. I do top the soil up each winter, which I'll do probably in the next couple of days. Last year I didn't top up the soil per se, but I did put a really good thick mulch of pea straw down instead. But most of that's either broken down or blown away. So this year it's going to definitely be getting a good dose of compost. I'm going to set up for a bit of speedy to some music, and if there's anything interesting at the end of it, I'll show you. Otherwise, I'm just going to work from this end down, and there's 6 roses to do, so hopefully I'll get them all done this afternoon. I did think at one point that when I was about halfway through, no, I'll do half of them tomorrow. But anyway, I pushed through and I got them done. I had some excellent supervision from Beau. He's just sitting down here, but him being a bit more camera shy than Lou, he sort of only flits in and out. I think I've gone through everything about pruning roses and things like that with you, but if you've got any questions, just pop them down in the comments. Happy to answer them. I'm no expert on roses, but I have had roses in my life, most of my life. My father adored roses. We had roses in every home that he had, and then once I started having my own homes, I always had roses as well. And in one property, we had about 100 of them. But since being here, I've just been slowly popping in a few roses here and there. So I started off with these 6, and then I've got the ones out the front, and now I've got the extra ones out here. And I'd put heaps more in if I was allowed to, but you know, shared home, so I've got to be mindful about what I put in and where I put it. So I'm going to give that up for the day now. My nose is officially frozen and I'm going to go and warm it up with a hot cup of tea. Beau's plonked himself up there on the deck saying, come on, time to come in. No sign of Lou since I started, so he's either curled up somewhere asleep or he's off doing whatever Lou does when he's off and about. Right, it's that time of week for a coffee and a chat, though. I think I've got a cup of tea. As you can see, it's cold enough that I've broken out the bright jumper, and I've just found one really bad thing about it. I can't actually put my mic on it, so I'm holding my mic, so hopefully the sound is okay. Right, so what do we get up to this week? Well, we had a long chat around killer compost. So that is compost that has herbicide in it. And I think I probably said everything that needs to be said about it in there, but if you have any questions or anything, just pop them down in the comments section and I will try and answer them for you. The other thing we did was that we pruned the roses. It was good to get them done. Still got a wee bit of work to do with those. Mainly, I haven't got around to topping up the soil yet, and I also need to put the irrigation in, both of which I will get done in the near future, hopefully. Just like to thank everyone who has subscribed to date. It's always awesome to see that number tick up, and it's nice that you've joined me on my journey. However, if you haven't subscribed to date, it is free to do so. So you just click on that button there that says subscribe. And if you are happy with what you've seen or what I've done, a thumbs up, like, or a comment always helps with the algorithm. And the more that I get likes and comments, the more YouTube pushes my vlogs up the line. Right, I'm going to leave it there now and get into my cup of tea before it goes cold. So until next week's vlog, it's bye from me.